I think the part of it that really speaks to me and that's been really successful for me is that you seem to see the other people in my life that I love not as a denouncement of my love for you, not as a threat, but as an affirmation of my love. That love is there.
Hey, you. Thanks for tuning in. Just a quick heads up, this episode is rated R, so expect that there will be some language that you may not want your kids to hear, lots of adult topics, and quite possibly some explicit conversations about sex. This episode is probably not safe for work, though, I guess it depends on where you work.
Hello, Radiant Rebecca.
Hey there, Shawn.
We are once again here in Pleasure Central Radio Studios, and it's even more intimate today in so many ways because we have your friend Josh with us.
Not just my friend, one of my new partners.
Your new partner, Josh. Hi, Josh.
Hello, everyone.
And that's what we're here to talk about. Let's talk about this budding relationship. Let's talk about some of the fun things you've discovered about yourself and about each other. Let's talk about some of the lessons that the rest of us may be able to glean out of some of this. And we're just going to have a good time today.
That sounds like just what I was hoping for.
Well, then we're on the right track. So how did you guys meet?
We met on a dating app. We were just both looking and both found.
Yeah, I think his introductory message to me was something about one of my favorite TV shows and authors that I had put on there is Terry Pratchett. And so he asked me how I had enjoyed the end of the season of that particular show. And that was very clever because I'm a huge Terry Pratchett fan, so he definitely got my attention. Yeah.
Okay, so we didn't talk about that in pre-production here. So that actually strikes me as lesson number one. Men, women, when you're on dating apps, read their bio.
Yes.
Comment on something on their bio. Hey, sup is not really the best way to capture their attention.
Nobody has time for hey, what's up anymore.
So Terry Pratchett. So you have a sense of humor.
You'd have to. I'm standing on 2 yoga blocks just to meet you guys' eye contact.
That's funny. Actually, a couple of weeks ago, I was at a practice group of tango dancers, and I have brought about half of the people that were at that group, and they're all tall, and the person who organized it is not very tall. And she's standing there with me and like 6 other people who I introduced to the group, and we're all over 6 foot. And she's just like, "You made us all feel so short. Why'd you do that?"
Simply because you invited the tall people.
I invited the tall people.
I see.
Yeah, someone said, "I think you have a thing for tall people." And I said, "No, I think they have a thing for me."
I'm not sure it's tall so much as just your magnetic personality is what it is.
Aww.
So
Are you saying she's just spaghettifying everyone around her?
Spaghettifying?
Like when you approach a black hole and you stretch out?
That was such a nerdy joke. Yeah, when you come close to a black hole, you get elongated and space changes.
I should know these things.
Because the closer something is, the faster it's getting pulled, so your head would be getting pulled towards the black hole faster than your feet were getting pulled, so you stretch out.
Right, and therefore you're taller.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, that could be part of it. I don't think we should start calling you the black hole, though. I prefer Radiant Rebecca.
I think I prefer Radiant Rebecca, too.
So you meet online, you send a clever message, and suddenly the conversation gets struck up. And how did the first time meeting go?
Well, it was some months later, as we talked for a time, and then I just lost all radio contact with Radiant Rebecca. And then some months later, she came back and said, "I'm so sorry, I fell off something."
Oh, I had broken my arm. That's right.
Yes.
Yeah. I didn't just fall off the map. I fell off a bike.
And we set up a date, I think, within the week after that, because over those months I'd learned that I was tired of talking online.
Ready to meet up in person?
Yep, and so I'd had some good responses from just going, "Hey, why don't we get off this thing and just Meet in person. Let's figure out how scary I am in real life.
And he had been telling me about a park that he loved. And I love parks. I love city parks. I love all kinds of parks. And I was like, I'd be game to see another really cool park, especially if it is as cool as you say it is. So he invited me for a picnic in the park and offered to pick me up and drop me off. And that was the beginning.
I had such a different vision of what a first date of two people that connect through Terry Pratchett would actually look like. Like, I can just imagine.
And I put on my wizard robes.
Yeah, exactly. You showed up at the church, right on the church doorsteps, and decided to, yeah, wow. Okay, well, that's cool. You went to a park.
Yes.
I know that you could probably spend like a couple hours on this, Josh, but what did you like about Rebecca?
Well, I liked that she was honest. That goes a really long way. It's hard to keep communication.
How did you know?
It's hard to feel like a person's lying when they go, hey, by the way, I'm a courtesan. Where are you going to go from there? As far as lies go.
Okay, honest.
Yes, it makes communication a lot easier when you don't have to second guess what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
When you can take that at face value and start acting upon that, rather than going, first, is that true? And then going, okay, what do I do with what I think is true now that I've second-guessed the hell out of them?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is very different.
Yeah. So another layer of abstraction.
We've talked about a lot of times in this show about how important that is to Radiant Rebecca, so I can imagine that she would be attracting somebody that would be important to them as well. What else?
I like somebody who appreciates a lot of the same things as I do, because otherwise it just sucks dead air when you're trying to have a conversation. Sci-fi, fantasy, outdoors, just over-analyzing things.
I don't mean to beat a dead bush, but finding somebody that also appreciates Terry Pratchett is like, that's pretty damn cool, like right off the bat. You kind of get an idea of their irreverence and their sense of humor and, like how they operate and, kind of that whole fuck it in general, attitude of just like, yeah, that's the way it goes.
Well, speaking of irreverence and humor and all of that, actually, I think it was our second date, and he quoted a Tim Minchin song to me. And that was so funny, because Tim Minchin is an artist and a comedian that I've known about for a long, long time. I've introduced a ton of people to Tim Minchin.
So cool. So you go on your first date. You've been talking now for a couple of months, like on and off, it sounds like, right? And now how long have you been seeing each other?
For about 7 months since the end of June.
Since the end of June. So it seems to be going pretty well.
Yeah.
I like to think so. And now we're living together.
Nice. So, and Josh, are you, and we all on the program know that Rebecca is polyamorous, and do you consider yourself polyamorous as well?
I do, and it's been a really great journey for me.
Great journey for you. Okay. I like this. Is this something new for you?
It is. It's actually my first romantic relationship, and I decided to just jump into the deep end, because why not?
And when we first started talking about your introduction into couple, we were talking about one of the statements that one of you made was that one of the things that you liked about this relationship was a thought around the statement of how you love is enough. Rebecca, we just got done recording an introduction for an episode that you did with Wendy about partner have-to-haves. And in the have-to-haves, I'm thinking about the story going back to meeting Mom. In the have-to-haves, I remember part of your have-to-haves was that you don't like to be hidden. Mm-hmm. When you were talking about your relationship and you said that one of the things that kind of pops out to both of you is how you love is enough. What did that mean to you?
How you love is enough to me is a reminder that we can only be as open-hearted as we can be. We can only give as much as we can be. And being cognizant of where that limit is and sharing that with other people is a beautiful thing, actually. I think often in the monogamy culture, not being able to give somebody everything that you have or not being able to commit fully is often seen as a bad thing. And in this case, it's not. And I think I would like more people to see that as it's okay to love or to have this space for someone in your life only as much as you do. You don't have to force yourself to have more space for someone or force yourself to try and be everything for them just because you want to be everything for them.
Josh, how does that statement ring true for you?
I think it's really important that people understand that they are valid, even if they're not the stereotype or the ideal of whatever it is they're trying to be. And they need to understand that being the best them that they could be doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be the same from day to day. That being the best you can at any given point has to be enough for yourself, even more than for your partners.
Yeah, and I think this really points to a lot of self-love. Who you are is enough, not just how you love. How you love is a natural expression of who you are. You are enough wherever you are.
Yeah. And when I heard you make that statement about each other, that what you appreciate is that how you love is enough, immediately, we just got done recording the introduction to the Partner Have to Haves. And that was a great conversation with Wendy where we talked about the importance of really honing down and getting clear about what it is that you want, not only what you want, but also what you have to offer. And so when I heard you say how I love is enough, there was a couple things that I thought were kind of great about that. One being that requires that you know what you have to offer because you know what you're able to give. Requires some communication, of course, with your partner. And then the other thing that I really liked about it was that it kind of helps to let go of the shoulds. And by the shoulds, I mean like the shoulds of what you think a partner should be and what society says a partner should be and what religion says a partner should be and anything else as a partner should be. And you can say, here, this is what I have to offer. And then you'll find the right person who says, yeah, that's enough. How you love is enough. I thought that was a really great way to put that.
Because quite often I find that people are in the right to begin with, and then they should all over the good stuff that they had.
Exactly. And what this does, having that statement be kind of the over, a nice theme to a relationship, what that does is it brings, it's not just about polyamory. It's not about monogamy. Regardless of what lifestyle you choose, that whole thought of how I love is enough is really a great piece to live by. I think what I really liked about that statement was, and again, tying this into that episode that we just finished up, what I liked about the partner haves and wants was part of it was actually coming to terms with what we individually can give to a partner as well. And the whole thought of how you love is enough, to me, that says a couple of things. Number one, it says that there's somebody out there, whatever lifestyle you choose, whether it's polyamorous or whether it's monogamous, there's somebody there that, or the right person, let's put it this way, the right person for you will be somebody that recognizes you as how you love is enough. The other thing that it says to me is that if you don't know yourself how you love, then how you love will never be enough because you'll never know. And therefore, finding the person that actually is able to accept how you love can be more difficult.
If you don't ask the right questions, every answer feels wrong.
So going back to this thought of how you love is enough, how did that present itself? And I mean, of course, 7 months down the road, you understand and you're still together and living together because you recognize that what your partner offers you is what you're looking for in that partner and vice versa. What was happening in your life and what has been happening to kind of lead you to that space of, Rebecca, I recognize how I love is enough, and Josh is really cool with that, and Josh feels the same way, vice versa. So what was going on to kind of lead to that?
So what was going on for both of us is we had different people who still had a very, very big part of our thoughts, of our day, of our heart. And I was doing a lot of grieving of my person, and Josh was doing a lot of, not grieving so much, but he understood the grief that I was going through, and he was able to recognize it for what it was. It didn't have anything to do with him. It was, something that I needed to do for myself. And he was able to hold that space for me really well throughout, the last 7 months. And I think what we were both looking for when we found each other, we were looking for a kind of companion type relationship, someone to spend a lot of time with, maybe nesting relationship to have a home with or a house with. And it was it's different. I mean, we're both poly, and so the way we look at looking for a house and a home partnership is different. We're not necessarily looking for who am I going to spend the rest of my life with, and now where's our castle going to be? We're just like, hey, how can we build a really lovely life together with someone that we really, really like? And hey, look, there's more than just like there. There's actually a lot of really beautiful, deep feelings, but it's being allowed to blossom in the time and space that it has instead of being forced into this idea of what a relationship should look like. And so could almost say that we have started a little bit more as, well, roommates sounds platonic and it's not, but we started more as wanting to be roommates and having that grow into a relationship. And yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
I think the part of it that really speaks to me and that's been really successful for me is that you seem to see the other people in my life that I love not as a denouncement of my love for you, not as a threat, but as an affirmation of my love. That love is there, that it's not some mask.
Yeah, and I don't demand that it's all there for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's just...
So here we are 6 or 7 months into it, and I'll start with Josh this time. Josh, tell me a story of one of the best times you've had with Rebecca.
Well, we've had some great ones this summer, which was a scorcher. We ended up not being able to spend any time with anybody else because a person in my social group got exposed to COVID, and so I was trying to stay away from them. And so just the two of us, we went out to a swimming hole that I happened to know about up near the place where I grew up and had a lovely day in the sun and the water.
Yeah, it was wonderful. Took a picnic and everything.
Picked blackberries along the way.
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
All right, I got to get a little deeper into this because here's the thing. Josh grew up in a small town just like I did. Y'all know I grew up and it's pretty much up where polar bears are active in the wintertime.
Next stop, the moon.
And Josh knew of a swimming hole on, what creek? Do you remember the name of that creek?
Oh, gosh. It's one just north of Bryant, Washington.
Okay, so if you're on the Centennial Trail and you head north out of Bryant, cross a little bridge, and I've seen this because I used to bike that trail. On the right side of that bridge, if you're heading north, on the right side of that bridge is a spot where this creek comes down. And I said, dude, you hear I said creek, not creek. That shows you exactly how all right, anyway. So this creek comes down and does a little turn right there. And so there's an eddy with a nice little swimming hole right there. So I just thought that was like a cool part of this whole story is that it wasn't just, oh yeah, we went swimming and found a blackberry. No, this is like a really like cool backyard swimming hole that Josh knew of. Okay.
And that nobody knows about, really.
Skinny dipping.
I have.
Not this time.
Not this time.
There were occasionally people walking across the bridge, so we respected their privacy and ours.
That's true. I might have been one of those people at some point.
You might have been.
Looking on my bike and like, oh, look at those naked people down there in the hole.
Hey, wait, I fucking recognize them.
Yeah.
Don't I know her voice?
Wow, she's radiant. Oh, wait. Okay, and Rebecca, so tell us
one of my favorites. Well, that actually was one of my favorites too, getting to go to a swimming hole. I grew up in the desert, and so swimming out in the woods is not something that ever happened. So it was neat to both get to experience some of the neighborhood that he grew up in and get to see that and to listen to the stories that he has about growing up in that area and what that was like. But yeah, one of my other favorites was actually a similar time. We were super warm. The city was pretty hot and there's no air conditioning in my apartment. So we were trying to figure out what can we do with our Sunday afternoon where we're not going to stay in this apartment and just sweat to death, but going outside, it's pretty hot out there too. So I ended up taking him to one of my favorite parks, which was up the hill from a beach and in the middle of a bunch of shade of some very, very tall trees. So there's quite a good convection of cool air there. And I didn't realize this, but I think that was like the second time you made out in public or something.
It was the first time we made out in public.
Right. Yeah. And it wasn't super public. We were in some trees and somebody did walk by and see us, though. It was pretty funny. Yeah. But yeah, that whole experience. And mainly, I think it was fun for me because we were spending the day together and I was trying to figure out how we could enjoy ourselves more. And so I kept asking myself, what do I want? What would feel better? What do I want? What would be nice? And I kept thinking someplace cool and someplace where we can be together and see something interesting. And that just happened to be where I was led.
Plus, we were on a time constraint because that was the day when I was going to visit a friend afterwards.
That's right. Yeah. So parameters are helpful for finding happiness.
Everybody thinking about what they want and saying what they want is very helpful.
So helpful. Makes such a difference.
Nice. And so, what else? Any other stories that you want to share?
Yes.
You know, just so everybody knows, I said that knowing that there was more stories that they wanted to share.
Were you baiting the witness?
He's a master at baiting.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Let's see, other stories. There's other good stories. The story of meeting some of his family was pretty cool. Yeah, so after we went swimming, I was wondering if there was someplace nearby we could get nectarines because it happened to be the season for them. And Josh was like, well, my mom has some. She has a tree in her backyard. So we ended up going over and seeing his mom. And so they got to meet me, and that was pretty cool. I do remember on the drive over, I was talking to him about okay, do we need to be discreet about anything here? And he said, just be whoever you are, be yourself, be who you want to be. And so when his mom asked me 10 minutes into meeting her what I do for a living, I told her. I told her that I basically go on dates, have orgasms, and make art as a courtesan. And she was a little surprised, a little taken aback, and then she just paused and said, wait, did my son hire you? And I said, no, he did not. And that was pretty much the end of it. I don't think I've had any surprising questions from them since, but you've had some questions from them.
Yeah, mainly to the same degree that I think you get from people. Are you safe? Are you happy? Mm-hmm. For you, more than me, apparently.
I think those are important questions to ask of anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole thought of, are you safe? Are you happy? Right. Is that's a question I actually I don't know about it. I don't ask safe when I start to date somebody, but I flat out ask them if they're happy
Mm-hmm.
or if they, if history has come up and they've talked about, and I remember one in particular talked about that she had multiple boyfriends and, had been through a lot of relationships and that sort of thing. And I flat out asked her, so do you like men? It's a very important question because if she's not happy, she's going to be looking, if Rebecca's not happy, she's looking for something from you likely to fill that happiness. And that's just starts out as a recipe of disaster.
I agree.
Good questions that Mom had.
Yeah. Are you safe? Are you happy?
How were the nectarines?
There actually weren't any.
No nectarines.
There was a tree, but it wasn't ripe yet. It was still too small. So, yeah, we went over there and didn't get our nectarines, but we got plenty of other juicy things.
And blackberries.
Right. Yeah. So the other story that I like to tell is interesting for me because there's a couple of fantasies that I've had for many years. And two of them Josh has helped me fulfill this year, which is pretty cool. One of them is a fantasy I had of a threesome with two guys that loved me. And Josh was one of those guys for that threesome. And another one of my friends and occasional lovers was the other person. And it was really cool. There's so many lovely things about that threesome. I have a lot of threesomes because of my work and because I'm poly, and that's just kind of how I roll. But I think this was probably one of the best I've ever had. And a lot of it was just because we were so conscious and aware, and everyone was genuinely interested in each other and curious and wanting to explore. And also it seemed like everyone felt very safe and comfortable saying where their boundaries were and their edges were. And we never bumped up against any of that. So, yeah, I don't know. It's just a beautiful, fun, sexy, adventure with people that I really care about and they really care about me. And it was so satisfying.
How did that go for you, Josh?
It was wonderful. I mean, like we've mentioned earlier in this was my first romantic relationship, and this was maybe 6 weeks into it. And so this has been somewhat of a whirlwind, but in absolutely the best direction.
Definitely a whirlwind.
One of the things that I liked when you were talking about that story is how the communication that you had with the third party, that you had with Josh, and that you all had with each other. And then what I thought was nice about that was when that person came over, like it wasn't just about just like, okay, here's how we go. Just like chuck, step 1, step 2, step 3. I think you said you watched a movie, like you guys were all in bed and you're kind of just chilling and having a nice time. And then things just kind of, you could feel the connection grow.
Yeah.
And then.
Yeah, we made dinner together. We watched a movie. So it was a few hours of hanging out together before we were talking about consent and what we needed from each other at the time, just before dinner. And then we were just spending time together and getting to know each other and enjoying being in each other's space. And yeah, it was lovely.
Yeah.
Oh, that reminds me. There was an episode a couple of weeks ago where a couple interviewed me, Christy and Steve, this really lovely couple who have a show called It Goes Both Ways. And they asked me to give them some homework to improve their sex life. And I did. And I have been doing the homework myself with Josh, the homework that I gave them. And the first part of the homework was to have her give him a blowjob, but to only do things that felt pleasurable to her during that time. And that was really fun. I'm curious. Do you want to hear how that went?
Yeah.
Well, I find that, and this may sound insulting at first, but I promise it's not, that it wasn't all that different, because I haven't found that Rebecca does anything of that nature for any reason other than that. There's never a time when you're like, okay, get in.
Yeah.
And so the only thing that really changed was that you were going into it with that intention rather than just with that passive understanding that, yeah, I'm doing this because I want to.
Yeah.
We're all going to die and a blowjob's fantastic.
That is a good quote. Thank you. I recognize that one. Amanda Palmer. Yeah, it's a good song too. Okay, so you said it wasn't that different. What was different though?
Well, aside from the position, never did that on the couch before. I think we kind of went into it with like a more intentioned mindset. Like quite often, sex kind of occurs and whatever is what we're doing and go, ooh, let's try that. Like, ooh, let's try that. This time we went into it with, let's do this. Like, we're doing this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, of course, with consent on both sides beforehand, would you like to do this? But now we're doing this until this is done.
Have you ever had that kind
and this is done. This was done.
Explain.
It was done. I think that statement stands on its own. And I think both of your blushes stand on their own, too. And I do believe I'm winning.
Have you ever had a blowjob like that where she gave you the blowjob just for her pleasure?
No, I can't say that I have. I think that's an interesting way to do it. I've done the whole thing of, as far as communication, like you tell me what feels good. And vice versa, like back and forth. We've done that before. Never with a spot of, you know what, I'm just going to do what I think I want. It's an interesting idea.
It is.
Why do you think that works? To spice things up.
There's two reasons why I think this works. The first reason that we often forget, especially if we watch porn, because porn has a tendency to make us feel like what looks good is what feels good. It's usually not the case. But what feels good for us usually feels good for our partners. And in my experience, it is a way bigger payoff to figure out what feels good for me than to try and imagine what I think is going to make them happy and do that. So I look for what feels good to me first. And when you look for what is genuine pleasure for you first, whoever you're with is very likely going to react to your pleasure. And that's a good thing.
That part speaks to me. Like, I get far more turned on when I know that she's having a good time than when I'm trying to figure out what will make her have a good time, or any of the thought process goes into that. So that makes a lot more sense.
Yes, it really like validates you as a person. Be like, oh, I'm desired at the moment.
It does. Well, it adds. I think it adds to the intensity.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about the Kadosha book earlier in the 4 levels of orgasm. And the 4th level of orgasm, where all of that is at. It's in the connection. It's in the complete vibe with the other person.
Yeah.
On all different levels.
Yeah.
Okay, so you said 3 things. Number 2, that was number 1. Number 2.
For the homework, number 2 was that for the couple, he was supposed to go down on her for 15 minutes, and her job was to communicate to him using only 7 words. Faster, slower, harder, softer, more slippery, less slippery. 7 words. That's it for 15 minutes. And then the third piece was for them to spend time together. For them to spend 30 minutes a week separate from each other doing something that they really wanted to do for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't done the rest of that homework yet. Well, we kind of spend time separately.
Doing our own things
anyway.
On their own.
Yeah.
And when I'm going down on you, you don't even use 7 words. Just hand signals.
Some guiding cones here.
Like, you use like the slow down hand or the speed up hand or the...
Oh, good catch. Yes, I do.
Let's see, that's awesome.
Like reach for something and then you're like, oh no, that was right. That was good.
So, and that's why this popped into your mind, is because this is all about the communication piece and all about the connection piece that you had with what we were talking about earlier. So,
yeah,
I think that's fantastic. Well, Josh, I am happy to get to know you a little bit better, and I'm sure the people that are listening here feel the same way. So, I appreciate you being on.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me,
and it's always fun to have sexy men squished into my closet with me. So thank you both for joining.
But now it's time to come out of the closet. I'm sure that joke has never been made before on the show.
Shawn's like, he makes it every other episode.
Yeah, right. Thanks again, Josh. Rebecca, you are truly radiant.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for the episode. See you on the next one.
Excellent. I can't wait. I can't believe I'm getting sort of shy all of a sudden.
Yeah.
It's fun to watch. Look at her face. Like, legitimately look at her face.
So hungry.
Sure.
The tight
closet, tiny recording studio.
I was trying to come up with something a little more congenial than that, but yes, the tight closet studio of Pleasant Central Radio.
Thanks for listening to Pleasure Central Radio, hosted by Rebecca Beltran. The co-host for this episode is Shawn. The guest today was Josh. Technical production by me, Katerina, with advice from our podcast consultant, Sandy Waters. Rebecca gets significant creative feedback from her beta listener group. For this episode, special thanks goes to Jody, Bob, and Chris, and to anyone else we might have missed. You're loved. Curious to hear some of the songs mentioned by Rebecca, Josh, and Shawn? We've created a Spotify playlist with all of the songs, so you can easily pop that on and hear a different side to Rebecca and Josh's relationship. Please find a link to the playlist in the show notes, as well as a link to part 1 of this 2-part series, in case you've missed it. We look forward to your company on the next episode. Ciao!